Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this narration of the web series Very Clever Primitives, taken from Reddit with the author's approval. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 4. Absolutely not, Lan. Again, I reiterate, you're not the boss of me, Rash. You are my mentor. If those primitives are lying to us and they kill you, what happens to me? I'm not spending 15 more revolutions in the academy while scholar bureaucrats decide what to do with me. Resh was taking my latest assignment too well. Despite her rage, all I saw on her scales was a soft, pale violet with concern. Resh was scared. I think we all were when the humans made it abhorrently clear they wanted to speak to me first out of everyone. The terms weren't disagreeable. I'd be allowed armed escorts from the warrior caste as I made my way down there. Still, they were adamant that a mere biologist was the one they wanted to talk to. Not any leadership or diplomats. They wanted to speak to me and were virtually immune to the diplomat caste's sweet talk. When the discussion with the humans finished, we spent nearly 3/4 of a rotation discussing what to do. We pinged the nearest high command vessel for instructions. But they were many, many light years away, and by the time we made a jump to FTL, got close enough to high command to receive orders, and returned here, the window of opportunity would be closed. Humans were very, very impatient, and we were not prepared for how swiftly we needed to act. The mission was in our hands, so begrudgingly a bargain was struck. I would be given an armed escort, meet with the humans where we both would discuss how our species would move forward after this unexpected discovery. Humans were very, very hard to read in terms of what they were thinking. They do not have colors to display their emotions. How they communicated all aside from words and tone in their voice was beyond me. We were given 2 Earth weeks to learn basic English and to finish the antibodies so that we could survive on their world. At least in terms of microbial infections. And indeed, within 3 Earth days, the antibodies were finished with a 98.6% adaptation rate. I had to abandon Resh's studies during most of that time, leaving her to study the human samples as well as run additional tests on their genetic code. The Vanguard and the diplomats forced my hand, as I had a lot to learn and very little time. I had to learn English alongside diplomats, and as someone who has never opened a linguistic theory textbook in their long tenure of study, learning a new language was tedious. But learn I did, as well as the general dialects of the region I was going to. I was fortunate humans and the Valan shared many physiological traits, such as tongues and teeth. Could you imagine if humans used various tones of chirping to communicate? What if they gave off pheromones? Even while studying their language, my mind still was brought back to their biology. Once a biologist, always a biologist, I suppose. At the end of my study, and after the antibodies were administered to every crew member on the ship, we needed 2 rotations for them to take a hold in our bodies before landfall was even considered. Fortunately, we had more than enough time. All told, even after 2 rotations out of adaptation, we still had a full Earth day to wait before I was sent down to Earth. Hence, my meeting with Resh had her outburst. "Resh," I sighed, looking at her as I would my own hatchling. "I will have armed escorts. I have learned one of their languages, and worst case scenario, I am but a calm shout away for aid. Everyone on this ship has been inoculated to a majority of the infectious Earth diseases, and we've transmitted the data to High Command. I really doubt humans, despite being primitives, would start a fight," I said, unsure if I was trying to convince Resh or myself that I would be safe on the extremely hostile world filled with primitives that could shatter my body if they really wanted to. Resh lowered her head, placing her 2 fists against my shoulders. She began to sing soft, sweet praises to Sko, the god of strength, patron of the warrior class, to me. It was common for the religious amongst our kind, when a friend or family member was sick or facing danger, to utter such prayers. I couldn't help but roll my eyes. Stupid, superstitious nonsense. Yet, if it brought Resh peace, I would comply. "Sko will see you home safe," she muttered once she was done blubbering to a non-existent god. "Sko's good about that," she said, her violet scales softly changing to a light yellow. Resh was a phenomenal student, but that religious nonsense would be her undoing. She must have spotted the disbelief in my face, her scales shifting to a deep orange almost immediately. "Can't you, for once in our partnership, just go along with it? It's not like I ask for much from you," she hissed, quills rising in irritation. "Can't go along with what I don't believe, Resh," I replied, leaning against the wall of the hallway that we were in. "You say that now, but I promise you those humans are planning something. There's no other reason that they demand to see you and you alone. Otherwise, I don't care if you believe in the gods or not, but they believe in you. So when you barely make it off that planet after they attack, wondering how you made it back alive, I want you to really think about that lack of faith." She spat, turning around and huffing back to the lab. My colors mixed and flowed in confusion. Where was that outburst from? Was she that petrified? Honestly, the clergy did a number on that nymph. I figured that I would let Resh's colors settle for the remainder of the rotation and relax myself. My own nerves were starting to show, vibrant green patches on my otherwise neutral palette. I went into our ship's library, taking a seat on the softest, cushiest chair they had available, and simply looked upward out of the observation glass into the cosmos. My kind had done so much. We'd explored nearly 1/16 of the galaxy. We've overcome our own primitive natures to become one united species. It wasn't an easy thing to overcome, and it took generations upon generations to forget old hatreds, but we did it. We've conquered almost every obstacle keeping us planet-bound species. We needed a new trial, a new test. Humanity could be that test. I just wasn't sure I needed to be a part of it. I couldn't sleep at all as the moment of truth approached. I slowly rose from my seat when the time came to say goodbye to Resh and made my way to the lab to see if she was present. Of course she wasn't. She wasn't in her quarters either. I searched the ship for as long as I could to find her, but she wasn't present anywhere. Perhaps it was for the best. Nymphs, even brilliant ones like Skaresh, still had issues dealing with potential death. As such, I made my way to the lab again, opening up a voice recording program as I began to speak into a nearby dictation microphone. Perhaps a parting gift, if the worst was to come, was in order. "Let it be known that Skaresh, should my time on Earth prove fatal, has succeeded in every trial I, Scholar Skalon, High Biological Research Advocate of the Valan Academy of Elite Scholarship, have set before her. Let it be known that I, personally, fully endorse Skaresh's acceptance into the Academy of Elite Scholarship's Biology Department as a recognized scholar of the caste," I said, my scales turning a soft violet. I said the audio record to be released upon the declaration of my death. Skaresh would never, if I died, be sent back to the Academy while they search for a new mentor for her. Don't say I never did anything for you, Resh. 40 revolutions and gaining an endorsement, even post-mortem, is the highest honor any apprentice could ask for. You're lucky you're brilliant. If I should die, that endorsement would shave 20 revolutions of study off of her apprenticeship. Alas, the moment of truth came. I turned off my workstation and grabbed 2 items from my desk, my personal communications terminal, which I could use to access my workstation and communications linked on the ship, and another phylactery. The needle was sharp, and I couldn't handle a gun to save my life. Literally. I stuffed those items into my inner coat pockets and made my way to the hangar, where a team of 5 warriors awaited my arrival to begin transport to Earth. Warrior caste. Oh, how odd those ruffians were. There hadn't been a need for warfare amongst our people for some time. They were glorified peacekeepers, either going to new planets to clear out areas of hostile flora and fauna, or staying on established colonies and Valar hunting down criminals to throw into prison. Even with all of our advancement, some rotten eggs existed in a few clutches. However, as new species of potential hostile aliens emerged, the warriors found themselves eager for an engagement. Woe be unto the humans that decided they wanted to pick a fight. I'm pretty sure those 5 warriors alone would have pointed their plasma rifles downward, shot holes through the planet itself, crawled through those holes, and would emerge on the other side just to strangle one hostile target. What did they feed the warrior caste? All right, Lan, the commander of the unit spoke as we entered the small shuttlecraft, each of us strapping in as we prepared to enter the atmosphere. Earth has about 10% higher gravity than Valar, so you're gonna feel a bit heavy when the gravity pulls us in. Wind and inclement weather are really common too, so if the wild, diseased animals don't kill you, the planet itself will. It's boiling hot and freezing cold at the same time in different locations. We'll keep you safe from the people, but try not to trip on a rock and let the planet get you, she said, cackling wildly while slamming her fist into the cockpit. Get us out of here, we're ready to go, she exclaimed. With a sudden feeling of weightlessness, the spacecraft began to slowly rise. The bay doors opened up, and with a bit of a thrust, we were off. I couldn't see the outside of the shuttle, but I'd like to think that Skaresh was out there to say goodbye. My scales turned violet as my thoughts turned to her. Did I need to be so cold when she prayed for me? I was her mentor, and she was concerned about my safety. I started to feel like I was letting the poor girl down until another warrior gripped me by my shoulder. Mind on mission, Skalar, she said, her own scales a vibrant green. Though I'm sure that was because of her excitement rather than the nerves. Play nice to the colorless, bird aliens for maybe a rotation or two, then we'll go back and let the diplomats take over. Easy, she said, giving me a compassionate look. Compassion? From a warrior caste? That was shocking. I nodded in reply and began to practice some common English phrases in preparation for meeting the humans at their desired coordinates. I'm sure the warriors looked at me as if I was mad. It didn't take us long to reach the area they wanted us to. We landed on a slab of artificial stone easily enough and slowly began to emerge from the aircraft. Warriors first, then myself following suit. The very second I walked out of the shuttle, I was in sheer awe at the beauty of the place. Vibrant green hues assaulted my eyes as I looked around, wrapped my lab coat a bit tighter around me as the wind of this planet whipped around my form, giving me quite the chill. Fortunately, the warrior armor kept them nice and warm. Lucky them. A dozen or so humans stormed out of a nearby stone building as we left the shuttle, carrying rifles slightly similar to those our warriors had. I couldn't help but chuckle as I saw their weapons. Solid, projectile-based weaponry. That'd work on their own, but with how hardened the warriors' armor was, they'd be lucky to crack the first layer. Still, if that kept these humans from worrying about the spooky aliens, more power to them. Which one of you aliens speak English? One of the human soldiers barked. Strangely, his guns weren't pointed at us, but rather on the forest beyond our little stone outpost. The warriors all looked at me in confusion. I was the only one that had been given the language training, it would seem. Fantastic. That is me, I said in what I assumed was broken English. The human dialect was so brutish and bizarre. They forced their tongue into movements against their teeth and the roof of their mouth. It lacked the finesse of the Valan speech. Great, we gotta move, now, he paused, turning to the woods once again, shouting, Stay back! At the top of his lungs. What was he shouting at? I couldn't see or hear anything. Stay back, or we will shoot! As his voice echoed out, I looked to the commander of the warriors, who was clearly at a loss. Her scales flowed in and out of various colors before I could hear a rumble. It was faint, but it was growing louder and louder. Go! We need to go now! Why? I asked. My question would soon be answered. From the woods, a tide of flesh emerged, all in different tones of clothing. Humans, hundreds of them, charging from the woods towards the fenced-in area. Not a single soul amongst them concerned with the threats of the soldiers as they marched forward. The warriors lifted up their own rifles in preparation of the assault. There they are! The aliens are here! A human near the front of the tide shouted, causing a roar of noise from the other humans as they only trudged through the forest faster. A few soldiers opened up their steel doors and stone building. Go! Now! I was barked at. I nodded, looking the warriors with me, nudging my head towards the door so they got the message. We more or less sprinted into the building just as the gates barricaded us from the outside world were hit. As those steel doors closed behind us, the distinct sound of solid projectile gunfire echoed into the dark chamber we stood in. We really were attacked. End of chapter. This is a special thank you to the one, the only, the legendary Eric Hino, who has become the only Tier 6 patron. I just want to thank the T5 patrons and channel members. Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholtz, Australia the Dreamer, Try Again 95, Fudic Yol, Meridian 117, Elysia, Jordan Bucksborn, Angry Marine, Albarden Gasta, and Barkey. Thank you very much. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed. There are links down below, both to support this channel and for the author of this fiction. Anyways, I hope you all have a fantastic one, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.